We are back here on the Lynn Hayes Freeland Show. Robbie in the studio. Mark Schwartz is across the state, Pennsylvania. He was the attorney who fought to get Robbie Wideman out. He's been out for 3 months. I want to ask you this, Robbie. I'll start with you, then we'll go to Mark across the state. A lot happened in your personal life while you were behind bars. What strikes me the most is your son died while you were behind bars. Talk me through that process, that experience.
Well, it happened, I woke up one morning in my little tiny cell that I was in, and I turned on the news and I did my usual things, you know, I did yoga and meditation. I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I still get up that early. And there was a story on talking about John Edgar Wideman, that's my brother, nephew was killed. And I seen him bringing a body bag out of a house. And my mind just couldn't accept it. I kept like thinking I heard what I heard, but saying, no, they're talking about somebody else. They couldn't be talking about my son. But my mind is also saying, well, he's the only son, he's the only nephew that John has. But I couldn't accept it or believe it. But when they finally let us out for breakfast, I said, I should call, something's wrong at home. I still hadn't wrapped my mind around what had happened. And when I called, you know, my mother was crying, and you know, she said, oh, Robbie, you know, and you know, what a mother would say. And so, you know, it was real emotional. And I did get to go see him in the funeral home. And this is the amazing part of the story, to show that God was, you know, he's held me up all these years. And it's been kind of miraculous how it's happened. But I wasn't supposed to have anyone there at the funeral home.
Okay, so it was just supposed to be you.
Just supposed to be me, go to the funeral home, see my son. When we got there, his mother's parents, who were dear to me, were coming out. And their name was Mr. and Mrs. West. And Mr. West looked at and seen me in the car, and he said, Robbie, that's the way he talked, Robbie. And he looked at me and he pointed and he told his wife, and she ran in there and called somebody, called Geraldine, Omar's mother. And people started coming from everywhere. People were calling each other. People were running past each other on the street in cars, stopping cars, saying, he's at the funeral home, Robbie's at the funeral home. And before I knew it, my whole family was in there.
Wow.
I wasn't in there 5 minutes, and half of Homewood, it seemed like, was there. And so, you know, I got to stand there with my son, with my sister holding my hand.
Wow.
You know, we got to cry together, and you know, so it was very sad, but it was, at least I had that moment to,
you got to be there. You got to
grieve.
Yeah. And Mark, these are the kind of moments that humanize the experience that a lot of times people don't even process or understand. Mark?
Right.
Yeah.
No, they objectify people. And, you know, the interesting thing that's consistent, like Robbie is a lot calmer than I am. I'm furious at what Zappala did. In 35 years of practice, I've never seen a decision get reversed as quickly as this one did. And I have a lot of thoughts about how that happened. But the interesting thing about Robert Wideman, as I told the pardon board, he's reformed, he's calm, he's matter of fact, he accepts responsibility. And I think that is the strength that got us both through this. I mean, you know, he's not bitter, he's not angry. I am. Jeff Manning is, Cyril Wecht is. But Robbie Wideman is, you know, he's been largely the same. I mean, if you read Brothers and Keepers, I mean, you know,
Which
he
I
was,
did, yeah.
you know, I joke, typical Jewish. Yeah, I joke about it. It's a typical Jewish family. It's like, be like your oldest brother. No, I want to be like Huey Newton. You know, and I can imagine the pictures of him imitating, you know, Superfly with the white mink coat. But, you know, the Robert Wideman I've known since 1984 has always accepted responsibility and rather calm. I couldn't be in his place. I wish I could, but in many ways. But, you know, it's amazing his outlook.
Indeed.
And it's a consistent outlook.
Indeed, and you know, you mentioned the book Brothers and Keepers, and interestingly enough, we've only focused on you and your story today, but for years the story was Robert Wideman, the younger brother of John Wideman, the Rhodes Scholar, the Brown University professor, the author of so many books, including one that told the story of your two lives.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll just leave that right there. We got a commercial break. We'll be right back. We got a lot more to do. Stick around.